Welcome to SAM Conversation, a program of South Asia Monitor. Our guest today is Mr. Tsewang Dorji, a research fellow from the Tibet Political Institute, Dharamsala. We will be discussing China's latest moves against Tibet, against Tibetan interests, against Tibetan people. The first thing that we need to remember is we often refer to the over 4,000 kilometer long line of actual control as the Sino-Indian border. That is not so. It is the India-Tibet border, because all of Tibet was taken over, assimilated by China, Communist China, from 1950 onwards. And all kinds of atrocities and harassment and an attempt to obliterate Tibetan culture, history have been attempted by the Chinese Communist Party for decades now. Mr. Dorji, I request you to give us briefly some of the latest issues that have come up.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for inviting me for this show. So it has been more than 70 years since China's occupation of Tibet, as you rightly said that. When it comes to the latest, the Chinese development in terms of infrastructure, the military development, and the strategic logistic and development of so and so in Tibet, the first one is that right now the China has giving so much control and surveillance inside the Tibet. The latest example in terms of the China's development policy toward the Indo-Tibet border, the region is that China has deployed the military, medical military logistic to reinforce. So I think that is a very serious implication in terms of strategic and security. And another thing is that recently the Xi Jinping has signed and revised the military audit regulation. That is actually the second time revision. So it shows that there's a huge, actually the corruption, the huge informality is taking place among the CCP in terms of the military paradise. So I think that is, and also the latest development in terms of the military changes inside China. And obviously the human rights situation inside Tibet is not really good at all. And there's the connection between inside and outside Tibet has totally is cut. And there is no religious freedom, obviously, and the denying of language inside Tibet is omnipresent across the Tibet. And but more precisely when it comes to the Indo-Tibet border situation, at the present situation in the Himalayas, that China has already built the more than 624 border different villages across the Indo-Tibet border from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. So I used to call these different border different villages as the PLA's ears and eyes towards India. So it has huge strategy implication towards India, and India has to pay huge price for that, because this is another term of the Chinese expansionist policy towards South Asia, particularly in India. and Bhutan and Nepal. So I think so. This is the latest development that taking place across the the inter-Tibet border from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh.
We recently had Major General Mrinal Suman, retired, who visited Tibet. And what he conveyed was that there has been a lot of a lot of construction work which has been done by the Chinese. They've tried to induct there a lot of Han Chinese, and that's one aspect. The other is that the Chinese Buddhist group they're trying to use to assimilate and transform Tibetan Buddhism. Could you throw some light on this?
So when it comes to infrastructure development inside the Tibet, that is actually huge, and it's a massive infrastructure developments taking place. But the question is that who get the benefit? So obviously there has lots of research on that regard, is that the benefit goes to the People's Republic of China, and especially why China is building so much and huge infrastructure development where there is no man, where there is no house. Is China is in fact the China is building the very good infrastructure where there's no man lands. So that means like these infrastructure developments is mostly purpose for the military. It's a dual purpose. It's a strategic reasons. It's the military regions to deploy the military towards the Himalayan regions, to develop the Chinese military logistics towards the Himalayan regions. And that is clearly shows that China has a strategic thinking to expand their expansionist policy in the Southeast Asian countries. So therefore China is building very good infrastructure in Tibet. So that is one thing. The second thing is that, and as I mentioned before, that China has been occupied Tibet for more than 75 years, 73 years since 1950. But so far, the China controlled Tibet, but China could not control the Tibetan spirit, Tibetan mind, Tibetan way of thinking. Therefore, China realized that in order to conquer Tibet, in terms of mind, body, spirit, everything, China tried to destroy the Tibetan Buddhism. That is centuries ago, the history. So, in order to destroy the Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet, China has China has implemented numerous policy. The one example is that the Chinese authorities are not allowed to enroll the monks which are below 18 years old. So that is completely against the Tibetan traditional way of monastic education. Second thing is that, and if you are enrolled into the monastery, first thing is that you have to deny His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So actually that case is actually completely nonsense actually. And being a Buddhist, to reward or to respect the Dalai Lama it's a universal logic. It's a kind of the understanding that we had since the centuries ago. Therefore, China has implemented so many policies to destroy the Tibetan Buddhism, and then China tried to reduce the enrollment into the monastery, and then China tried to synthesize the Tibetan Buddhism in Chinese characteristic. That is serious implication actually, because China thought that the Buddhism is a soft power of Tibet, or China thought that the Buddhism is a soft power to rejuvenate the Tibetan nationalism. Therefore, China tried to control, China tried to destroy, China tried to genocide the Tibetan Buddhist culture in Tibet. And in order to destroy the Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet, the loss is not only for the Tibetans inside Tibet, and it has also the huge implication to the Himalayan communities. It has huge implication to the South Asian communities, and it has huge implication for the global Buddhist society. Therefore, to losing Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet is not only loss for the Tibetans, it loss for the humanity, it loss for the very rich culture in this world. I think that therefore it is very serious implication and it's very serious situation right now is happening inside Tibet.
Um, what is what is the latest that the Tibetan establishment in Dharamsala? Is there anything they have been able to achieve?
The latest establishment or achievement in Dharamsala is that, as you know, that there are numerous bills is passes in the U.S. Congress right now. And also the Tibet support bill is also passing in the Canadian Parliament, and also like the Central Tibetan administration has awarded as the campaign of the democracy. So the President Sekung is right now he is in USA to receiving that award. So all these symbolizes that our freedom struggle is based on the non-violence and the democracy, and we tend to opt and choose as non-violence as the ultimate act to achieve our freedom. In order to that, we have to preserve here the Tibetan community, Tibetan tradition, Tibetan language, Tibetan way of thinking. That is also right now, that is also signifies a soft power of India also. Therefore, the destroying Tibetan culture, destroying the Tibetan way of life in Tibet, but right now here in India, because of the government of India and the generosity giving from the Indian people, we could preserve the Tibetan identity, the Tibetan culture, Tibetan language, and the Tibetan monastic education in India. So that is achievement. Right now, I'm speaking from the Central Tibetan administration areas where I'm living here. We have actually the well-maintained everything, and we are ready to face, or we are ready to do anything based on the non-violence act to achieve. So that is the ultimate power or ultimate soft power. So therefore, China, you can see is that China has everything actually. China has military power, China has economic power, China has population power, China has all the power that China has. But one thing is lacking in China in the international stage is the moral power or the moral responsibility. So that is lacking in China that we have. Therefore, China always try to afraid the Tibetan establishment here because we don't have anything to compete with China in terms of the might, in terms of the military, but we have the soft power. So that is the non-violence. So this is our achievement since the Central Tibetan administration has established in India.
Thank you, Mr. Dorji. Thank you
Thank
for
you, sir.
putting a lot of doubts which you see them. There's such a dearth of information about Tibet, and in the Chinese system, nothing is shared. Everything is only for the by and for the Chinese Communist Party. So, thank you very much, Mr. Tsewang Dorji.
Thank you very much for inviting me once again, sir. See you soon, sir. Thank you very much.